Everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Lucid's 2022 Tournament Game 4, where we are playing Nazca. This is turn 90. And our world has gone topsy-turvy. Everything is upside down. The war with Pelagia is over. And we are scrambling to get into positions to attack Vanheim in the next 2 turns? This turn? 20 turns? I don't know. It's very up in the air right now. Much determines on what we see when we look at the map this turn, and whether or not Vanheim has moved on to a bunch of thrones, right? If Vanheim has moved on to a bunch of thrones, then it's go time, baby. Otherwise, the game is over, right? If Vanheim has not walked onto a bunch of thrones, then we are organizing or coordinating with Pelagia and Ulm to try to hit Vanheim at the same time and do what we can. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Fingers crossed. Let's jump into things, shall we? So, to kick things off, we have a bunch of stuff from last turn, but since we're not at war, no more remotes, right? Not from us or against us, right? And we have no research completed this turn, so the only thing we really have to report on is, did we get our King of Elemental Earth back? And the answer is yes, we did. We got Origines back, King of Elemental Earth, awesome, fantabulous. So from there, let's go ahead and jump into battles, which we don't really have a lot of things to report on, so let's just jump into some of these. The battles of us versus Pelagia aren't actually battles, so we're just going to click on them, we're not going to watch them. This is Pelagia moving into the Sea of Karassos. This is Pelagia taking Yis back, right, as we move off of it. And this is us moving on to the Whirling Sea, and that's that. So, actual fights. Let's look at Van versus Arco in the Witch's Copse. So we got another Van. Van Jarl, very low kit versus... Van Jarls are so good, right? They're so good. You have an excellent chassis, right? Minimal gear. And this is not a huge amount of PD, but it's not an insubstantial amount of PD. But it is an amount of PD that is statistically all but incapable of winning this fight. Immediately hits the Van Jarl. Does not pop his misform. It's the Van Jarl again. Does not pop his misform. That air shield that he gets off of his new bless is coming in pretty clutch. These guys aren't doing anything, by the way. Don't know why. They're just standing there. Very silly. Very, very, very silly. Very, very strange. Okay. It'd be that way. Done. Alright, so a little raid from Vanheim coming in. Easy peasy. We get to watch Pelagia actually attack some independents in the, what is this? Sea Eternal or Lake Eternal, right? This is the little group. I think this is the little group that was actually running around attacking us. They should be able to do this just fine. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Very nice. Much wow. Okay, so easy win for Pelagia in Whirlings or Lake Eternal. And then we get to see another Vanheim attack in Cavern of Tog. Okay, so this is actually a little bit more substantial. We got some Einhairs. We've got a Van Jarl with a little bit more gear. We've got a Van Jarl with a lot more gear. We've got a Shaman here, and we've got a Bone Reader here. Yes, Bone Reader with some Earth Boots. What are we up against? We're up against just a little bit of PD. So they're going to smash this, but let's see what they do to smash it. We get some Blessings, we get some Earth Powers, we get some Ethereals, some Sermon of Courage, Strength of Giants, Mist Forms, again, more Body Ethereal, Legions of Steel, hit to the Einhairs, more Body Ethereal, Flight. So these Einhairs have decent protection, hit really hard. A couple of them are body etherealed. As soon as they get poked, their protection. Einhairs are so strong. Like, Einhairs are potentially overpowered strong. Like, they're statistically really, really, really good units. And I think part of the problem is the high nature of the Berserker, right? If you wanted to balance an Einhair, I think you could balance them better by having them be like Berserker 2 rather than Berserker 5. I think Berserker 5 is almost absurd. They're super strong. But anyways, this is a stellar little raiding party. Very, very nice. Low-ish commitment. Hard to deal with. Very, very cool. Good job. And we are attacked in the Harbor of Copper. Harbor of Copper is still very much in Pelagian territory, so... or Pelagian Dominion, so we don't have our Dominion really pushing there, which means we get bad luck events, like a shit ton of war lobsters, and that's not great, because there's nothing here. So we're definitely smashed. Fortunately, this is in the trajectory that we're going, so easy way for us to go ahead and clear this out, no big deal. Battles for the turn. Battles, question mark, battles for the turn. Versus Pelagia, 1 win, 2 losses. Not really wins or losses, just exchanging territory as per the agreement that we have come to, so that Pelagia feels like they could actually have resources to try to fight Van with. Basically, that's the idea, right? That's the only reason why we're giving some of these provinces back, is because Pelagia is like, look, you already took a whole lot from me. Either if I get something back, then sure, I can work something out to try to fight Van, but otherwise, I mean, so makes sense. And versus Indies, we have 0 wins and 1 loss. So not a great statistical turn for us from the changing of hands of provinces, but it is what it is. Let's move on, shall we? Old Man Mountains. Events. Unexpected events. A local lawman has been found frolicking with fairies in the wilderness instead of carrying out his duties. So we get increased turmoil and unrest in Old Man Mountains. In Harbor of Copper, we have a large band of war lobsters attacking us. We have in Mushwood, some squires have been caught and interrogated. So an incoming attack in Mushwood. And then in Silver World, the harvest has been good. We get reduced unrest, and we get increased tax income. I'm not really sure how to categorize the interrogation in Mushwood. I don't know. I could probably look this up. Somebody, but I'm not gonna, because it doesn't bother me enough to concern myself with. But if someone knows off the top of their head, in the comments, let me know if when this event triggers, right? Can an attack trigger without this first attack or this first event triggering, or and it basically, is this a good event or a bad event? The idea of if it's a good event if the attack was going to trigger anyways, and this is a warning to you, actually a warning. That's what it's intended as by the game. Or is this a bad event regardless, because it once you get this warning, it triggers an attack that otherwise would not have happened, right? Is this the start of the attack regardless of, you get what I'm saying, right? So, I don't know. I categorized it as bad because I only ever see, most of the time I see attacks like this with these messages, though. But I don't really know. So anyways, events for the turn: 3 negative, maybe 1 positive. Old Man Mountains unrest +12. Old Man Mountains turmoil +1. Harbor of Copper was attacked. Mushwood attack incoming. And then in Silver World, the unrest is reduced by 10 and the tax income is increased by 100%. So that's the turn for events. And that is pretty much it, right? We don't have to really worry about, are we sieging things down, etc., etc. So, all of our movements, we're going to be pretty sparse with the majority of the conversation about our movements. We're going to talk more about the overall concept of the game. So let's do that first, actually. Because, well, let's just fucking zoom in. That's a lot more red on top of a section that 2 turns ago, was mostly teal, right? So this is Arcos Valley. This area was mostly teal 3 turns ago. 2 turns ago, Van started to encroach down here and started to push slightly down here from the Vanarus standpoint. And last turn, we saw basically the Arcocephalon area start to go red, and now we're seeing much of the Nabah and northern Nabah section go red as well. Obviously, a lot of these are fortifications, right? We just saw Witch's Copse get hit by a single Van Jarl. That single Van Jarl is not about to break Witch's Copse. But we do see other locations where there are sieging forces. And Van is quite close to a number of thrones, right? I'm not sure, and I don't know that I'm ever going to be sure, if our decision to stop the war with Pelagia is going to be right. But I can say that the response that Arco gave from last turn has basically remained the same into this turn. That they're done, that they don't really have anything to resist Vanheim with, and that no one has come to help them. And in point of fact, I don't know if it's this turn or if it's next turn, but they keep attacking Ulm rather than fighting against Vanheim. They keep attacking Ulm. So I believe that we are correct in the concept that Arco is no longer resisting Van, or no longer going to be of much resistance to Van. And we could have continued to persecute the war against Pelagia and potentially have won in the next 5 to 10 turns. I say won, but what I mean by won is broken Pelagia's power in the next 5 to 10 turns. Or Pelagia could have fucking whooped our ass a couple times, and we could be in either way, whether we won or lost versus Pelagia. I do not think we would have been in a position to then counter Van as we obviously need to try to do, right? I don't know that we're going to be in a position to counter Van now. But at least with what we're trying to do with Pelagia and with Ulm, we're trying to get to a point to where the 3 of us combined can try to make a difference against Vanheim and see how it goes. So all of our movements right now, all of our rituals, all of our I say all of our rituals, most of our rituals is us trying to get into position, trying to cover holes in what our potential options are, and go from there. First things first, we are consolidating in Silver World. We did use a Wizard's Tower there this last turn to fortify that, so that we can threaten Obelshin and keep Van from taking it, or take it for ourselves. If Arco's done and not going to do anything, we'll move an army there and smash it ourselves. We're also going to go ahead and obviously try to knock things off of Harbor of Copper. And then we're moving into a lot of different locations. Neefel specifically, Amul specifically, to threaten Cern, to threaten Satala. And we're trying to look at ways that we can attack coastal properties of Van. And what can we do to try to jump into other portions of Van. One of the things that we potentially have, that I'm going to point out, is that we do have a Well of Pestilence over here, right? Well of Pestilence increases the death ritual range by 2 provinces, but it spreads diseases. Undead don't care about diseases. So we are going to be sending our liches. We're probably going to try to raise a little core of liches, and we can send them there. And with that, we can do things like manifestations, which have a 4 range province, go up to 6 range, right? Ghost Riders, which have a 4 range province, or 4 province range, go up to 6 provinces. Both of those, that's a 4 cost gem attack, that's a 5 cost gem attack. So for 6 provinces, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All the way over into this kind of like territory of Van, which allows us a little bit of opportunity to be able to, you know, drop 2 or 3 stacks of Ghost Riders on Olier or into the Cloudbreakers to potentially, I'm assuming, right, that Van has every single dome in existence up on both Satala and CERN, but maybe they don't have every single dome in existence up on Mighty Pillars, right? So we could sue things like that, right? Manifestations, etc. So that's kind of one of the routes that we're going to go. We have a very high death income, so being able to do, if we can get 4 or 5 liches in Toledo and get them geared out to where they're relatively protected, and then drop, you know, 4 Ghost Riders on a province, that could be a big deal, right? Or being able to target, we know an army is somewhere, being able to target an army with 5 manifestations might actually be a big deal. We're also going to fort up Toledo with another Wizard's Tower, so we've got that incoming as well. Other than that, we've got a lot of just generalized concepts and ideas, right? Tossing a 60 stack of Haten Runa at a place. Probably that place, in any amount of PD kills it, any amount of resistance kills it, but if it's only like 6 PD or 10 PD, then a 60 stack of Haten Runa might matter. Also, even if we don't use the Haten Runa for that, we do have battlefield buffs that we can use at this point to try to basically make a difference, have them be able to crack forts. Again, I'm expecting, these are 500. I'm expecting these to be 1,500, right? With, what is it? Iron walls, right? Add 1,000 points of fort defense. But all of this is on the concept of, does Van pull the trigger on taking thrones? So far, they've been very cautious, and from a diplomatic standpoint, right, they're you know, giving these grand overtures of, you know, not going for thrones, just honestly, this is defensive war. Arco attacked them, right? And that's true, technically, I believe, right? But obviously, this goes past the point of defense at this point. This is now a war of conquest. It's just a question of, can we defend the thrones? And if need be, can we give ourselves an opportunity to go for a throne rush? Because at this point, in the game, I think the jig is up, right? We took too long to catch up. We started our war against Pelagia too late, and we failed to finish that war in time to rival Van's size and resources. Okay? So, that means that fighting Van on an equal footing scenario is out of the question at this point. And 3 smaller parties attacking 1 larger party in Dominions unfortunately doesn't work the way that one might hope. Most of the time, it can, right? But most of the time, the way that Dominions works, the way that the scaling in Dominions works, right, is that being bigger is exponentially better from a resource standpoint and from a power projection standpoint, which means that even if you combined all 3 of our landmass, Pelagia's landmass, and Ulm's landmass, that would I technically be bigger, right? Because that includes Ulmish lands, Agarthan lands, Hinamese lands, Nazcan lands, Pelagian lands, Oceanian lands, and Ysian lands. That's 7 caps, right? Versus Vanheim, who is basically 4 caps right now, and if they take Arco, I say 4 caps right now. Technically, they don't have Nabaa, but they have the territory basically around it, as well as the territory around Arco. So they only technically have 3 caps, but they have the territory of 5-ish land masses, right? Even though we technically have more landmass because it's spread between the 3 of us, that means we have not scaled. A weird thought. It means that my power has not scaled as high as Van's power has individually, and the strength of all 3 of us added up is not necessarily going to be the same. That's not a hard and fast rule. I do think it kind of like really depends on the nations that you're playing with, and how things function. It also depends on the strategy and the point at the game that you're in, obviously, right? Like three small nations very early on in the game versus 1 big nation pretty early on in the game can absolutely make a difference, right? There's a lot of like debatable content that I'm saying right now, so I'm just gonna leave it at that, right? I think that all 3 of us attacking Van is still probably not gonna win, but I do think it's the best shot that we have of winning. But we have to go, right? If we let Van consolidate, if we let Van finish Arco and consolidate against Arco, we're screwed, right? So we've got to start taking the initiative soon. What I've talked about with Pelagia and somewhat with Ulm is the concept of about 3 turns, right? So looking towards like turn 93, that might move into turn 94 or 95, depending on how things go. But I'm trying to push for sooner rather than later. Because if we can get sooner rather than later, we can start eating away at the edges. And as soon as we start eating away at the edges of Vanheim territory, it's absolutely going to make a difference way faster. Now, obviously, I have to be extremely careful about this because I already own 3 thrones. I guess technically I've only taken 2, but I own the Throne of Death, right? And I gotta make sure that when working with my allies, they're not just like, oh, well, you know, Nazca's just gonna take the last 2 thrones that he needs, or last 3 thrones that he needs, and be done with it. I'm not trying to do that. I'm actively trying to coordinate a coalition against Vanheim. I just think it might be too late. So let's see what we can do. All right. Let's go down the list of all of the various things that we're doing from a mechanical standpoint this turn. We are doing recruitment. We actually don't have a lot of money this turn because we don't have a lot of money for recruitment this turn because we are doing other things with our money. So recruitment, just 2 Pakwoes of the Mountain Spirits, 1 Hydromancer, and 4 Sun Guard this turn. No Royal Malquis, though I really want another Royal Malquis. Why are we doing the Pakwoes of the Mountain Spirits? We've talked about this. I think they're pretty decent. And we've seen, right? Van has a very easy way to raid large amounts of PD, almost with impunity. But if you throw something like a flying vile water at them, or a flying gelatinous cube at them, that can really fucking put a damper on their ability to do shit. So there's that. And we want to do other little things here or there. The Pakwoes are decent at a lot of little opportunities. The issue, though, being, again, that they are heretics and we have to keep keep an eye out for that. So Hydromancers, of course, very, very good. We're going to keep making those as far as we can. Sun Guard, very, very good. Making those. Nazcan recruits. We are up to 60 Hatenruna this turn. We have 315 Long Dead Warriors this turn. We have 22 recalled Supayas and 2 summon Supayas for another 14. Total of 36 Supayas. That's getting pretty up there. 1 summon Huaka for 7 Huakas. Again, I've talked about this previously. I'm not sure that I should be spending the gems on the Huakas and the Supayas the way that I have been. But I don't know. I haven't made a decision on flipping to something else. And right now, it feels like we need power. So rather than maybe, I don't know, store up 500 pearls for an Arcane Nexus, which was something that I was thinking of 2 turns ago, right? When we were still fighting against Pelagia. Now I'm like, the fucking game could be over in 2 more turns. So I need to be able to respond with things now. That means power in the pocket with Supayas and Huakas is something that I think is valid, right? On that list, special recruits, 1 Direwolf, 1 Dustwalker, and 1 Air Elemental, because we actually have Aya up here doing her summons. She's probably going to sit up here for the rest of the game and be the threat next to Satala. If she can get 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, or hopefully not longer than that, Air Elementals, that might actually matter. So fingers crossed there. Versus, right, like, what would she be doing with, like, I don't know, research or something. And yeah, actually, let's take a look at research real quick. We are very close to Thaumaturgy 8. Thaumaturgy 8 gets us Stygian Paths, which is going to be really important if we need to hit other locations. We do have things like Astral Travel that we could go for, which would also be pretty good, but getting to the level 9 is, I think, gonna take us a little while. We are up over 2,000 research now that we have more mages actually sitting and researching rather than moving them around with our armies, so that's good. We are gonna go for some evocation. Reason-wise, we're probably gonna go for evocation 8 for Pillar of Fire to try, if we need to on any given turn, we could dump 30 fire gems into a bunch of Aklas and say, hey, you're doing Phoenix Power, Pillar of Fire, Pillar of Fire, Pillar of Fire, Pillar of Fire, right? And that can absolutely do some work in the right situations. It is AoE 1, so it does hit a full square, does 34 damage. That is really hard to resist or protect against, and it's armor piercing, right? And it does heat fatigue area damage, so if you get a lot of those going, that can be a really, really big deal. Obviously, we would prefer a final, like, war at turn 150 where we have 30 fire income and we have fires and jars on 300 Aklas. But that's not what we have the opportunity to do right now. We have been royally fucked on our fire income. So even though it's not something that we can do really, really crazy, it is something I think that's going to be pretty useful. At the same time, there are other opportunities that we can get out of this. We can do things like Vortex of Unlife plays, which are a little weird, but they're options, right? And we can do things like Wind of Death pretty easily. That's going to be useful for us. And Nether Darts pretty easily. That's also relatively useful. Although Nether Darts, I think, does count more as a ranged attack. I think Air Shield does work against Nether Darts, but I could be wrong on that. I don't really remember. Regardless, I do feel at this point we need a little bit more boom for some of our mages rather than just spamming fucking Horde of Skeletons. So this is the play for now. Fingers crossed. We're obviously we'll have Thaumaturgy 8 this turn. It will take us another turn past next turn to hit Evocation 7, and then several more turns to hit Evocation 8. I don't know if we're going to have time to get there, but fingers crossed. Trying to make the right call here and now. We have buildings for the turn. Over in Silver World, we're immediately dropping a lab and a temple, right? We want to get our Dominion pushing over here because we don't want to fight into Gift of Health if we don't have to. We need to start putting temples in all of our Pelagian territories, and we are preaching in almost every territory that we can that we don't have. I don't know. We're missing a lot of places. We're trying to put a lot of preachers down, basically. So fingers crossed to see if that actually works. But the temple, obviously, more Dominion, and the lab, obviously, to get us gateways over into Silver World so that we could threaten more. We have a whole shit ton of forces in Satrandeth. We could gateway. Gateway is 6 provinces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We would need 7, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we are 7 away. So we would need a we would need a arcane lens in order to boost our spell range, right? To be able to gateway from Satrandeth over to Silver World. And I don't know that we're going to do that immediately. Actually, do we do that immediately? That's probably going to be on our list in the very near future to do so that we can make sure we can reinforce Silver World if need be, right? That also gives us the opportunity with things, another reason, right, that Toledo and this Well of Pestilence is pretty good for us is, again, Stygian Paths, right? Stygian Paths is 10 provinces, which is massive, but 2 additional provinces is most of the map, right? It basically takes almost every direction you can go 10 provinces in, and if you add another 2, there's only a handful of places on this entire map that we can't get to from a Stygian path in Toledo, right? And obviously, like, taking in a big stack into a Well of Pestilence isn't a great idea, but a lot of the things that we're going to be taking are potentially Long Dead, Supayas, things that don't care about diseases as much, right? So that's an opportunity, potentially, right? Rituals for the turn. We have 4 teleports, 1 Lichcraft, 3 Vile Waters, and 1 Wizard's Tower. We already talked about the Wizard's Tower. That's going up in Toledo. And then we have talked about the Vile Waters already. Gelatinous cubes as counters to Vanyarl raiding and other raiding as well, right? Like gelatinous cube, a flying gelatinous cube will eat a lich, right? Eat a Vanyarl. It'll eat a lot of things, right? So I think it's a pretty decent little counter. Although it is easy once you know it's coming, it's easy to avoid or it's easy to kill. So you know, it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. Lichcraft, we're going to continue to make liches probably every chance that we get, and send them over to Toledo. And then the 4 teleports are actually from down here. We are actually teleporting a bunch of shamans around. This current group is going over to Neeple. We're trying to put together an actual army in Neeple. We're going to try to put together an actual army in a mule. We actually have Nefeli heading down to Neeple right now. We've got a Royal Malqui heading over to Neeple. We're trying to get all of the parts in position every turn that we can. Though we're not trying to be super duper like. I'm trying to be calm about it. I'm trying to not just be like, oh, move the whole Satrandeth stack to Neeple. Move everything we can into Amul. Teleport everything, right? Like, I'm trying to not pull the trigger immediately. That might be a problem. Waiting for the concept of like, everything's going to be in position on turn 93 or 94 might be too late. So, fingers crossed that this little planning phase that we have with Pelagia and Ulm is not going to go south for us. I don't really know. I've said it before. I kind of feel like it is. I kind of feel like we were, again, we took too long to catch up. We took too long to start the war with Pelagia. And we were too slow in, or too unaggressive in the conquesting that we did, right? Everything that we needed to do needed to be 10, 15 turns earlier and 5 turns faster, right? But I don't know realistically if we had that option. I think in a perfect world, going all the way back to turn 24, right? Going all the way back to turn 24, if we made the same general strategic decisions across the board, right? The peace negotiations with Vanheim to take portions of Hinnom's territory, right? The alliance with Ulm to attack Vanheim that then turned into Ulm throne rushing, right? And then us deciding to attack Pelagia. If we made all of the same grand strategic decisions, but we min-maxed more of our choices, front-loaded more research opportunities, traded for more specific things, including fire gems, right? And had a more specific goal with certain gem types and in-game win conditions, then I think this would have been a different game at turn 75. But we didn't. And it's not. So I think this is the best chance that we have currently. Ultimate Gateway saves us 6 Astral and 8 Death Gems this turn. And then for forging, we've got a few new things here or there. We have 1 Cauldron of Broth, 2 Cornucopias, 1 Winged Helmet, 1 Huaka Headdress, 1 Dragon Helmet, 1 Spell Focus, 1 Eye of the Void, 1 Water Bracelet, and 1 Boots of the Messenger. So most of that stuff is new stuff, right? That is because we are trying to, again, close up gaps or spots or issues here or there. Cornucopias come in as preventing gym baiting for things like mass regeneration, and that's about it, right? Cauldron of Broths, we're probably going to start making some more endless bags of wine. We ran into issues with our supplies when attacking Pelagia at Illadar and at Ermithia. We will undoubtedly face the same issues in Satala, in Cern, in Obelshin, in Mudwood, and wherever else we are attacking as well. Winged Helmet. We have run into issues repeatedly over and over and over again with our reliance on the Queens of Elemental Air. They are awesome. They are fantastic. We have other air mages. We only have base Air 2 mages. With our Inca and with our Royal Malquis. Having something be able to put on an air helmet, a winged helmet, rather, an Inca, and be able to go underwater would have been really, really clutch in a situation like Hippocampus's Fortune, where we could have fog warriored our own people, that type of situation. Although that is actually more difficult than it sounds, and is more achievable via something like a communion than it is by just a winged helmet. But we can also use winged helmets on our Queens of Elemental Air in order to facilitate casting higher level air spells, like what is it? Is it Shimmering Fields? I think it was Shimmering Fields, although we can already do that. It wasn't Shimmering Fields. What was it? Is it Wrathful Skies? We can already do that. Maybe I'm misremembering it. Might have been Mists of Deception. Might have been nothing. Regardless, it's just trying to have more feathers in our caps so that if we need to hit more than 3 locations, because right now we only have 3 Queens of Elemental Air, which means if we're really reliant on them to do a super important thing for us, then we're kind of in up shit creek, right? So that's that. Huaka Headdress we've already discussed at length. Dragon Helmet, that's going on Fairy Queens. Nothing to discuss there. Water Bracelet, nothing really to discuss there. Boots of Messenger, nothing to really discuss there. Spell Focus, Eye of the Void. Those are new. Those are important. I do not know that we will make it to the concept eventually of a master and slave play, but I am trying to prep for that potentiality. Potentiality? Potential? Potential. I think just potential, right? Astral 8. Not easy for a Royal Malqui to hit. Being Astral 2 and not being able to use Starshine Skullcaps, thus meaning they can only boost through things like Crystal Coins, Rings of Sorcery, very expensive, Rings of Wizardry, also very expensive, right? Even those 3 items only get them up to Astral 5. But via communions and potentially by path boosting one, we can get to the point to where we have Astral 8 at the ready, and we can, we can do a couple of different other tricks to try to get things boosted up. So this is an opportunity. This is, I think, right? Things like Master and Slave is what people bitch about when they talk about late game Nazca, is they talk about endless undead and burbs, sure, yes, but then they talk about, oh, Royal Malquis are so strong because of the innate spellcaster, and they're not wrong, right? If you have the resources to get to the point to where you can turn 1 cast a Master and Slave, then that is absolutely a pretty decent win condition. Turn 1 Master and Slave, and then Ritual of Returning, you can steal people's armies. Okay? We should have, with an astral income of 26, we probably should have stopped making Huacas 20 turns ago and started empowering and prepping Royal Malquis for the sole purpose of Master and Slave. Part of the problem now is we're not at Thaumaturgy 9, meaning that we might not have that capability by the end of the game. So now I am concerned, right? If we try to focus on going to it, are we even going to make it there? Because the game could be done in 3 or 4 turns, right? And if I start prepping for that inevitability, i.e. empowering Royal Malquis, making Rings of Wizardry, Rings of Sorcery, those types of things, right? The game might end before that power comes into play. So I am very much in a position where I'm like unsure of whether or not I should commit to this, because it could be the thing that makes things happen for us. Or it could be too late, right? It could be putting eggs into a basket that is no longer an opportunity to actually succeed. So, what we are doing with the Spell Focus Eye of the Void, which is a very common penetration combo that you would use in a tactic like this, is we are prepping some bits of the combos, right? And we're going to try to not spend very many Astral Pearls on anything else over the course of the next 2 or 3 turns to see where things go. And if they go favorably, right, then maybe we'll make that pivot, right? We'll actually try to head for the Master and Slave play. But I don't know. So, that's the situation. I'm unsure about what the fuck's gonna happen in the next few turns. Don't know. We should have, that should have been our target at turn 70, right? When turn 70 happened, and Ulm did their failed throne rush, and we all pieced out. I should have immediately been like, okay, How the fuck do I do anything going forward? Master and slave. And I should have immediately just been like, thaumaturgy 9 all the way down. But I wasn't, right? Because if you'll think back, I had not committed hard enough to our research endeavor, and I was still very much at turn 70 trying to catch up with basic battlefield magic. So, like, I don't think we had fog warriors at turn 70, right? So, goddamn. I feel like every leg of this journey, I don't feel like our decisions have been bad. I feel like they've just been slow. If at turn 24 I had just been like, well, this game's gonna go to turn 97. We need Master and Slave. Yeah. That probably would have worked out better for us. It is what it is. We're trying to make the choices. We're trying to make the decisions that we feel like we can make in the moment. Now, we tried to make the decisions that we felt like we could in the moment then. And we'll see how this all turns out. Fingers crossed. That's going to be the end of this turn. See you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.